like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Saturn review, and today we're taking a look at the only King of Fighters game which saw a release in the PAL region. I'm talking about King of Fighters 95, which originally saw release in the arcades in mid-1995 before a March 96 release over in Japan on the Saturn, and eventually a long time later in July of 1997 over here in the PAL region. So the storyline for King of Fighters 95 revolves around Rugal Bernstein, who's thought to have been killed in the previous game, actually surviving and then sending out invitations to the teams from the previous game to set up a new tournament. Unfortunately, the American sports team invitation is stolen by the rival team, and this team consists of Yuri Yagami, Billy Kane, and Eiji Kizaragi. I am hoping that I have pronounced those names correctly. So once the main menu hits, you'll see you've got game start and options. Heading into options, it's all your normal stuff really, changing the difficulty level, changing the control pad layout, listening to all the musical tracks within the game, and also listening to all of the voice samples as well. So like always, we're going to talk about how the game looks, how it sounds, how it plays, its content and lifespan, and whether it's still worth playing today and can make our PAL Saturn top 10. Now for a 1995 game, this game is really, really decent to look at in my opinion. The backgrounds especially are pretty impressive. They're really varied, they're really big, and there's quite a bit going on in them. So I think they are probably the visual highlight of the game for me. The special effects, whether they're your normal special moves or the super moves, all look pretty decent as well in my opinion. The character sprite work probably is the weakest aspect of the game visually because they are a little bit pixelated. Although for 1995 they look great. Now what I have to say here is that this game didn't come out until 1997, and I'm talking about July 1997 over here in the PAL region, and by then we'd seen Street Fighter Alpha 1 and 2, we'd even seen Golden Axe the Duel quite a while before it, and that's not a bad looking game either, and we'd seen Night Warriors. So there was real stiff competition for King of Fighters 95 by the time it came out over here, and visually it doesn't quite measure up to some of those games. It is by no means a bad looking game, and it still looks pretty decent now, and it runs fine as well. And one thing I will say about the Saturn version is the loading times are very, very quick. You can go from round to round really quick on this game, and it is very impressive. Now you do need to remember as well, this is one of the few games that has its own ROM cartridge on the system, and if you don't have that, you can't actually play the game. Now, a lot of the animations, I believe, are stored on the cartridge, and it's one of the reasons why I think the game can load much quicker on the Saturn than the PlayStation. So moving on to the sound effects and music next, and the sound effects within King of Fighters 95 are perfectly good in my opinion. I think most of the 2D fighters from this point in time on the Saturn were good in the sound effects department. All of the hits, the smacks, the special moves all sound really decent. The voiceovers for the characters, no issues whatsoever with those. I think it just, in general in that regard, is a really decent sounding game. Now the musical tracks within the game, in my opinion at least, are much more hit and miss. I mean, we've got some that are reasonably good and then others that just aren't really that great in my opinion to battle to. And of course music is subjective and these are only my opinions, but I just don't think it sounds as good in the music aspect as some of the other 2D fighters from that point in time on the system. But what I'll do is what I always do, I'll give you a few examples of some of the tracks that I think are the better ones, so you can have a listen for yourselves. So moving on to gameplay next, and King of Fighters 95 is a really good playing game, and it stands out from a lot of other 2D fighters from that point in time, because a lot of them use that standard 6-button Street Fighter interface with 3-punch, 3-kick, and it was very familiar. All those games felt quite similar. King of Fighters stands out because it uses a light punch, light kick, strong punch, strong kick mechanism, which is slightly different, and it feels fresh. You can charge up your power bar with the L button, you've got a grapple button, block in, that kind of stuff. So it does feel different to the other games at the time, and actually it plays really, really well anyway. It's responsive, easy to pull off your special moves. They are quite similar to the Street Fighter ones. You can pull off combos as well, and like I said, you've got a power bar that you can charge up by using the charge button or by taking damage or blocking moves. Once that power bar is full, it will improve your general abilities for the time you've got it, and it will also give you access to your super move, which is of course very similar to many other 2D fighting games of that era. Now there is one flaw in the gameplay department, and it's actually a massive one, and it's probably one that will put off probably about 90% of people from actually playing this game, which sounds crazy. Now, if you can cast your mind back to when I reviewed X-Men Children of the Atom, which was over 2 years ago, I said something very similar, and that was the fact that the game is excruciatingly difficult, and I'm not joking when I say that. This game is rock hard. If you want to just play through it as one character, it is very, very difficult, especially when you get to the final 2 enemies that you have to face. It is so hard. It will put off a general gamer with ease, because they just won't want to put in the hours and hours of practice needed to defeat the last 2 characters on the game. It really is that much of a challenge. Now, I recorded several hours of footage of this game, and I simply couldn't do it, and I'm a decent gamer. I tend to think that I'm pretty good at most games, and 2D fighters, I've got a lot of experience playing them, but I just didn't have the patience to sit there and try and face those last characters over and over again. It really is so painful, because the characters that you face seem to have this amazing ability to block your specials from face distance, counter your moves, grapple you, do unblockable attacks. It is so frustrating, and for me that is the one single major flaw in the gameplay department for King of Fighters 95. So moving on to content and lifespan, and we've got single play and team play, and they'll enable you to see all the storyline for the characters that you select with an ending sequence as well. We've also got single and team versus, which are pretty self-explanatory, and we've got single all, where you select a single character and go through battling every single other character on the game. Now, this won't have any storyline in between, but you will get the ending sequence as well. We've also got a very large roster of characters. There's 2 characters additional to be unlocked as well, so it gives you plenty of variety in the character department, and the amount of moves on the game, far more than many other fighting games at this point in time. If you think about how many characters were on the original Street Fighter Alpha or Golden Axe the Duel, it was far fewer than this game. So that is a massive plus point in terms of content for the game, and trying to master each character will take you a massive amount of time. Now, like I said, there is storyline as well in the one-player modes, which is great. It's something that I think is a massive plus point for fighting games. It can get a little bit tedious, I feel, when you play through one-player modes and there's no storyline in between, but thankfully this game has it, and that is another massive plus point in terms of content and lifespan. Of course, where it probably falls down is the fact that it's very difficult, and you're going to need some kind of amazing perseverance to play through the game to actually complete it and see the ending sequences for all the characters. And for me personally, I don't have that anymore. I want to pick up a game and I want to play through it and enjoy it, see the endings for the characters without having to put in dozens and dozens of hours of practice just to be able to play through it as a few characters. It really is a drawback, in my opinion, for its overall lifespan, the insane difficulty. Of course, if you do like a very big challenge, then without a doubt King of Fighters 95 will give you that. So like always, that leaves us with our 2 final questions. Is King of Fighters 95 still worth playing today? And can it make our PAL Saturn top 10? Now, if you are a hardcore 2D fighting fan, then King of Fighters 95 would be right up your street. It's the kind of game that you can sink hours and hours of practice to to become a great player, and you will actually have to do that to be able to be a great player at this game. It's not a case of picking up and playing this game and being good straight away. You are gonna have to really hone your skills. Now, for the average player, this probably won't appeal because it is simply too difficult. Now, does it have the quality to make our PAL Saturn top 10? It probably won't be much of a surprise when I say it can't. It doesn't really quite compete with the best 2D fighters, or certainly 2D fighters that we've looked at so far on the system. We've still got a few more left to cover, I think, in this series as well. But it's by no means a terrible game. If you're playing this in a multiplayer-only experience, I imagine it is tremendous fun because it's actually a great playing game and there are lots of moves to each character. So if you're playing it with a friend, I think its entertainment value is probably much higher than you'll get in a one-player experience. But like always, these are just my thoughts and my thoughts alone. Did anybody pick this game back up on the Saturn when it came out? It's become one of the rarest PAL games out there. It's a pretty pricey game, I should say, with the RAM cartridge as well, so it's quite uncommon to see this game out and about. Let me know your thoughts down below on King of Fighters 95, and like always, I'll be back in the near future with another review. Goodbye for now.